Have a turbo dance on the floor.
Some songs never got the shine they deserved. The 80s were a hard time for reggae. The music changed. The industry moved fast, and some of the deepest songs got left behind. Not because they were weak, because the system was not built for truth. You think you know the 80s reggae sound.
Are you ready to stand up and fight for right's revolution?
But there are songs from that era that will shake everything you thought you knew. This is not a list of hits. This is a list of what should have been. Number 10, Ijaman Levy and Madge, I Do.
Settle down with me.
Close your eyes and picture a Sunday morning in Kingston, not the hot, noisy afternoon, the quiet morning, when the whole neighborhood is still. That is where this song lives. It is soft, spiritual. It feels like a prayer more than a love song.
I've got enough love for you and me.
And the two voices together, one man, one woman, they sound like two people who genuinely mean every word they are singing. This is not a party song. This is not a rhythm anthem. This is something you play when you want to feel something real.
Straight from my heart. Sweet love.
Ijaman Levy was a Jamaican-born singer with deep Rastafarian roots. He had already built a following through the 1970s with powerful, conscious music, and by 1985, he was recording on the Tree Roots label in the UK. I Do was a duet with his partner Madge.
Turning me on. You're so beautiful.
The song was about commitment, about choosing one person, about standing before God and saying yes. The lyrics were simple, but they landed like a stone in still water.
Cool and warm. I do.
The track got serious attention in the UK reggae scene and appeared in the 1985 pre-release disco charts, which, for those who don't know, was how the British reggae underground tracked what songs were moving on the sound systems before they were even officially released.
I want to be with you.
That chart placement tells you everything. The people who knew music first, the selectors, the serious listeners, they heard this song and put it on their lists immediately.
Honestly.
Ijaman Levy was not your typical love song artist. Most of his catalog was deep roots and Rastafarian consciousness. So when I Do came out and showed this tender, romantic side of him, it genuinely surprised people.
I promise to love you, I do.
And many fans had never heard him sing like this before. The combination of his gravelly, spiritual tone and Madge's lighter, sweeter voice created a contrast that was completely unexpected and completely beautiful. This song never got a wide release. The Tree Roots label was small and had limited distribution outside of the UK reggae circuit. And by the time 1986 and 1987 came around, the music business had moved on so fast that a slow spiritual duet from 1985 had almost no chance of keeping up. It never got the remix, the reissue, or the compilation placement it deserved.
I'm happy that I'm the one you love.
The cruel truth is that some of the most beautiful songs in reggae history were made by artists who never had the right business support behind them. This was one of those songs.
Straight from my heart. My precious.
Stay with me because number 9 is a story about a group that almost became one of the biggest names in reggae and then just vanished. Number 9, Home T for Uptown Girl. This one has a different energy to it. This is the sound of a young man who is in love with someone who comes from a different world than he does. You can picture it. A warm Kingston evening. She is uptown. He is not. And the whole song is him reaching across that gap, singing straight to her, hoping she will hear him. It is equal parts romantic and desperate, and that desperation, that hunger, is what makes it unforgettable. Home T4 was a harmony vocal group from Jamaica. The group was led by a singer who would later become simply known as Home T, one of the most respected harmony voices in 1980s and 1990s Jamaican music. Uptown Girl was released on the S&R label in 1985. The production was smooth and polished, a light dancehall rhythm underneath a very emotional vocal performance. That it was exactly the kind of song that bridged the gap between roots lovers rock and the newer dancehall sound that was taking over. It appeared in the 1985 Jamaican pre-release charts, which confirmed it was getting real rotation on the sound systems. The theme of the song, a man from the streets in love with a woman from a higher class, was something reggae audiences understood deeply. That social divide was real life in Jamaica, and songs that told real life stories always hit harder home. Home T would go on a few years later to record one of the most beloved lovers rock classics of all time, Telephone Love, with Coco T and Cuddy Ranks. That record became a massive hit across the Caribbean and the UK. But before all of that came a quiet, emotional ballad that most people have completely forgotten. It is the early chapter in the story of one of reggae's most underrated singers. The S&R label had a limited reach beyond the Jamaican market, and in 1985, with so much music flooding out of Kingston every single week, even a good song could disappear in weeks. Home T's fame came later as a solo artist and collaborator. The early group recordings, including this one, were left behind when the hits came. It is the kind of song that only the real diggers find. Coming up next, a man who could make heartbreak sound like sunshine. And in 1985, he was on a completely different level.
All right, C-Trends fam, let's keep it real. We're pouring our hearts into bringing you the best celebrity news and music deep dives. What? Check it. A massive 98% of you aren't subscribed yet. Subscribing is how you can truly support us, helping us grow and create even better content. If you're vibing with what we do, take a sec to hit that subscribe button. It's free and makes a huge difference. Plus, ring that notification bell so you never miss out. Let's flip that 98% and build this C-Trends family together. Your support is everything.
Every story you see here takes hours of digging, piecing together history, and bringing forgotten moments back to life. If you'd like to support that work, you can become a channel member. It's just the cost of a cup of coffee, but it helps us keep these stories alive, and for that, we're grateful. Number 8, Al Campbell, When the Lights Are Low. If you want to understand what lovers rock feels like at its absolute finest, you need to hear this song. Al Campbell had a voice that was cool on the surface, but burning underneath like water over fire. When the Lights Are Low is exactly that. It is intimate, quiet, the kind of song that makes you pull someone close.
Little woman, please say you'll be mine. Come on,
This is late night music. This is the sound of Kingston with the lights low and the bass coming soft through the speakers. Al Campbell was one of those artists who worked with almost every major producer in Jamaica from the late 1970s onwards. He was steady, reliable, and deeply talented. The kind of singer producers loved because he could walk into a session and deliver on the first take. When the Lights Are Low was released on the S&R label in 1985.
I need your touch, little girl. I need your love so much.
And it appeared on the UK pre-release charts alongside another of his singles from the same year, She Hold On, which shows you how active he was in the studio during that period.
Come on home. Oh, yeah.
The lyrics were a direct love address, no metaphors, no political message, just a man telling a woman exactly what she means to him when the world gets quiet. In 1985 Jamaica, that kind of emotional honesty in a song was something special.
Cause I need you when the lights are low.
Al Campbell had been recording since the early 1970s and had worked with legendary producers including Phil Pratt and Bunny Lee. By 1985, he had been in the business for over a decade, which meant he brought a real maturity to his performance.
I need you, girl, that's all.
So when a man who has lived a full life sings about love, it sounds completely different to a young singer just trying out the style. And that lived experience comes through in every note of When the Lights Are Low.
I know, yeah. I need you when the lights.
Al Campbell was one of the most consistent artists in reggae history, and consistency, sadly, sometimes works against you. When you never have one enormous hit, people don't always remember you, even when your catalog is deep and rich.
Lights are low. I need you, girl.
By the late 1980s, the digital dancehall sound had fully taken hold, and smooth lovers rock ballads like this one were being left behind by the industry. Not by the fans, but by the labels and the radio stations.
Girl, that's all I know. Well, please say.
Number 7 is a man who took a classic and made it reggae forever. You probably know the original, but I promise you, you've never heard it like this. Number 7, Sugar Minott, Mind-Blowing Decisions. Some songs don't need to be original to be perfect. Sometimes a singer takes someone else's song and completely owns it. Sugar Minott was a master of that. He had a way of singing that was casual and intimate at the same time, like he was sitting right next to you, not performing on a stage. Mind-Blowing Decisions sounds like a slow walk home after something beautiful happened. It is warm, unhurried, and completely at peace with itself. Mind-Blowing Decisions was originally a soul classic. Sugar Minott took that song, laid it over a reggae rhythm, and made it his own. Minott had been one of the most important figures at Studio One in the 1970s, and by 1985, he was running his own operations and releasing music with real independence and confidence. On the track appeared in the 1985 UK reggae pre-release disco charts, and the Black Roots and Wow labels both had versions circulating through the sound system circuit.
So I thought to myself,
Minott was one of the first artists in reggae to really embrace the idea of doing covers and making them feel like original music. He had a natural warmth in his delivery that made borrowed songs sound personal.
plenty time to all these decisions lying in my.
Sugar Minott was also deeply committed to helping younger artists come up. He ran the Youth Promotion Sound System and Talent Development Program in Kingston, which helped develop singers who went on to have their own careers.
Holding hands
In 1985, while he was recording smooth ballads for the UK market, he was simultaneously helping shape the next generation of Jamaican music. The man was always giving back.
My arms around the waist, neither one of these two.
Because it was a cover song. Mind-blowing decisions sometimes got lost between two audiences, the soul fans who preferred the original and the reggae fans who were moving towards dancehall.
Will I try in age, taking my time.
Sugar Minot himself had such a massive catalog, hundreds of songs over decades, that individual gems like this one often get buried under the sheer weight of everything else he recorded.
To work our problems out, you're trying to convince.
Number 6 comes from across the water, a voice from London who made Jamaica proud without ever leaving England. Number 6, Sandra Cross, Country Living. Now we move to the UK side of the story, and it is a big part of the story. In 1985, London had its own reggae world. Clubs, pirate radio stations, basement dances, and a sound called Lovers Rock, smoother, softer, more soul-influenced than the Jamaican original that was being made by black British artists who had grown up hearing both worlds. Sandra Cross was part of that world, and Country Living sounds like everything that world was about. Peaceful, warm, a woman's voice floating over a gentle rhythm, like it was always meant to be there. Sandra Cross recorded Country Living for Ariwa Records, the legendary label run by Neil Fraser, better known as Mad Professor. Ariwa was based in South London and was one of the most important reggae labels in the UK during the 1980s. And Mad Professor was known for his dub production, heavy, atmospheric, full of space and echo, but when he worked with vocalists like Sandra Cross, he pulled the production back and let the voice lead. The result was clean, elegant, and deeply emotional. The song appeared in the 1985 UK Reggae pre-release disco charts, confirming that the sound system selectors were already playing it before it was even widely available. Country Living was about longing for peace and simplicity, a quiet life away from the noise. In a time when both Jamaica and London were going through serious social pressure, that message hit home hard. Ariwa Records, under Mad Professor, was doing something very unusual. In 1985, they were taking British-born black women and giving them serious studio time and proper releases. That was rare. Now, most of the reggae business in the UK was still male-dominated and focused on Jamaican-born artists. Sandra Cross became one of the faces of UK lovers rock precisely because Ariwa gave her the platform. Country Living was one of the first songs in that chapter of her story. UK lovers rock as a genre has been systematically undervalued in the reggae history books. For decades, the focus was on Jamaican roots reggae, and then dancehall, and the British contribution got minimized. Sandra Cross and songs like Country Living represent a whole world of 1980s reggae that most people outside of the UK reggae scene have never discovered. It is a genuine gap in the history, and that gap needs to be filled. We are heading into the top 5 now, and I have to warn you, number 5 has a story behind it that will make you angry and sad, and maybe both at the same time. Number 5 of Frankie Paul, Closer I Get to You. When I first heard this song, I sat still for a long time after it finished. Frankie Paul had a voice that did not make sense. Too big, too powerful, too emotionally precise for a man who had been blind since childhood.
Closer I get to you.
He sang like someone who had trained himself to feel everything twice as much because he could not see the world. So he learned to hear it in a way the rest of us never could.
The more you made me see.
Closer I Get to You is a slow-burning lover's rock ballad that carries real physical longing. It is not polite. It is not cautious. It is a man who wants to be close to someone and is brave enough to say it out loud.
Giving you all I've got.
Frankie Paul, born Paul Blake in Kingston, Jamaica, was one of the most prolific vocalists of the 1980s. He lost his sight as a child due to an illness, but that never slowed him down.
Your love has captured me.
Closer I Get to You was released on the Black Scorpio label in 1985, produced by Maurice Johnson. Black Scorpio was a serious dancehall operation, but they also recognized that Frankie Paul had the range to do something softer and more intimate, and this song proved it.
Forever, more than for always.
The track appeared in the 1985 Jamaican pre-release charts alongside some of the biggest names in the business. In the middle of the digital dancehall revolution, Frankie Paul was showing that the human voice could still stop a room cold.
I love you forever, more than for always.
In 1985 alone, Frankie Paul released an almost unbelievable number of songs. Historians who have tracked his output estimate he had dozens of active recordings that year across multiple producers.
Loving you every day.
He was in the studio constantly, sometimes recording multiple songs in a single day.
What more I have to say.
His voice was so consistent and so powerful that producers trusted him to walk in, hear the rhythm once, and deliver a finished vocal. He rarely needed multiple takes. What you hear on the record is almost always the first or second time he sang it.
Loving you even more.
Earlier in this video, I told you that number 5 had a story behind it that would make you feel something. Here it is. Frankie Paul was one of the hardest working singers in Jamaica during the 1980s. He recorded for almost every major producer. He had hit after hit. He was in demand everywhere.
Oh, baby, you know my love is very.
And yet, for a long time, very little of that success translated into real financial security for him. Some people in the reggae industry have spoken openly about how artists like Frankie Paul were recorded heavily and compensated poorly.
And I love you forever, more than for.
Session fees were small, royalty agreements were often one-sided, and the rights to recordings were retained by producers and labels, not the singers who made them unforgettable. In interviews over the years, it has been said that Frankie Paul himself expressed frustration with how his career was managed and how the financial rewards of his work did not always reach him the way they should have.
Always, girl, I love you forever. And
There are different versions of the story. Some producers have said they paid fairly for the time. Others in the industry say that the structure of Jamaican music in the 1980s, with its fast-moving sessions, verbal agreements, and single payment deals, made it almost impossible for an artist to build real wealth from their output.
for always. Still living.
What we know for certain is this: Frankie Paul gave that industry everything. His voice, his time, his talent. He recorded hundreds of songs. He made producers rich. He made rhythms famous. And by the end of his life, he did not have the legacy or the financial recognition that his body of work deserved. He passed away in 2019. And when people in reggae heard the news, many of them felt a quiet grief, not just for the man, but for the way the system had treated him. Closer I Get to You got caught between two worlds. It was too soft for the hardcore dancehall crowd that was following Frankie Paul's rougher material. And it was not promoted heavily enough to reach the UK lovers rock audience that would have embraced it. It slipped through the cracks, which is what happened to so much music that deserved better in 1985. Number 4, Gregory Isaacs' Private Beach Party era.
I was tired of the jailer, but the jailer was tired of me. Are you ready?
There are voices in reggae that you recognize in 1 second, one note. You hear it and you know exactly who it is. Gregory Isaacs had that voice. Smooth does not even begin to cover it.
Come on. Are you ready now? Yeah. Lord.
His voice was like warm rum on a cold night. It slid around the melody with a kind of casual confidence that made it sound completely effortless, even though every note was exactly where it needed to be. The music from his 1985 album Private Beach Party has a sound that is unique to that year and that moment. It is reggae, but it is also something more, something elegant, something dangerous in a quiet way. Gregory Isaacs, born in Kingston, Jamaica in 1950, had been one of reggae's biggest stars since the 1970s. By 1985, he was entering a new chapter of his career. That year, he began his collaboration with Gussie Clarke of the Music Works label, one of the most important creative partnerships in reggae history. Private Beach Party was the album that started it all. The New York Times once described Isaacs as the most exquisite vocalist in reggae, and the music from 1985 is exactly why that description fits. The production on Private Beach Party was warmer and more polished than his earlier work, a perfect frame for a voice that had only gotten better with time. The songs were about love, longing, desire, and vulnerability. Not the vulnerability of weakness, but the vulnerability of a man who has lived enough life to admit that love is the thing that matters most. Gregory Isaacs appeared in the Jamaican film Rockers back in 1978, one of the greatest reggae films ever made. Even then, he had the kind of screen presence that most singers can only dream of. By 1985, he had also performed at Reggae Sunsplash, the legendary annual festival every single year since 1981. Which means that while he was making the Private Beach Party album in the studio, he was also holding down one of the biggest live stages in reggae every year.
Let me hear a second. Everybody, come on. 1, 2, 3. Bring it in.
That kind of consistency only comes from a man who truly lives the music. Gregory Isaacs' 1985 work sometimes gets overshadowed by his even bigger commercial success later in the decade, particularly the album Rumors, which came out in 1988 and became a worldwide hit. When a later album becomes massively famous, the work that came just before it often gets forgotten. People jump straight to the biggest hit and miss the beautiful journey that led there. Private Beach Party was part of that journey, and it deserves to be heard. Number 3 is the Crown Prince himself, a man who once got the ultimate compliment from the greatest reggae artist who ever lived, and earned every word of it. Number 3, Dennis Brown, Revolution. Some songs carry the weight of everything that came before them. Every lesson, every loss, every late night in the studio, and every morning that came after when Dennis Brown sang, you felt all of that weight, and you were grateful for it because that weight was wisdom. Revolution has a roots energy to it that most pure ballads don't have. It is not just a love song, it is a declaration. A man standing up and saying, "Here is what I believe, and I am not moving." Dennis Brown was known as the Crown Prince of Reggae. He earned that title. By 1985, he had been making serious music for over 15 years, starting as a child prodigy at Studio One in Kingston. Bob Marley, who knew a thing or two about reggae, once called Dennis Brown his favorite singer. That is not a small statement, and that is the highest possible testimony. Revolution was released in 1985 and showed exactly what Brown could do when he combined emotional depth with political consciousness. The song bridged the personal and the political in a way that very few artists could manage. Dennis Brown's voice in 1985 had a richness that came from years of experience. He had survived the rough side of the Jamaican music business, built an international following, and was still recording music that challenged and moved people. Dennis Brown was also deeply connected to the roots reggae tradition. Even as dancehall took over, he refused to fully change his sound just to chase commercial trends. That decision cost him chart positions, but it preserved his artistic integrity completely. In a year when everyone around him was going digital, Dennis Brown was still singing with soul and structure. Revolution is proof of that conviction. Dennis Brown passed away in 1999 at just 42 years old. Like many of the artists on this list, his death came too early and robbed the world of decades more music. After his passing, the focus naturally went to his biggest and most famous recordings from the 1970s and early 1980s. The 1985 material, which was still excellent, received less attention simply because the archive is so deep that people rarely make it that far. Number 2 is a man who proved in 1985 that you could be dancehall and emotional at the same time. A voice so distinctive it was impossible to copy and impossible to forget. Number 2, Barrington Levy, Here I Come. Barrington Levy had one of those voices that did not exist anywhere else. High and raw and full of life. He could pull your heart in 3 different directions in the same verse. Here I Come is not a traditional ballad in the slow, quiet sense, but it has the emotional structure of one. It is a man declaring himself, stepping forward, saying, "Here I am, and here is what I feel." Play this song in a room full of people who grew up on 1980s reggae and watch what happens to their faces every single time. Barrington Levy had already established himself as a major artist through the early 1980s with tracks like Bounty Hunter and Prison Oval Rock. By 1985, he was at a creative peak.
2 months later, she said, "Come and get your son, 'cause I don't want your baby to come tie me."
Here I Come became one of his signature songs, the kind of record that follows an artist for their entire career. It had an undeniable melodic hook and a vocal performance that felt like it was both effortless and absolutely precise at the same time.
Because you are old and I am young. Yes, while I'm young, yes, I
The song crossed from the sound system scene into mainstream reggae radio in the UK and became a genuine crossover record, appealing to both hardcore reggae fans and people who had never really followed the genre before.
wanna have some fun, run me down. Shoodly waddly diddly woodly diddly whoa.
That crossover reach was a major achievement. In 1985, very few reggae artists could pull that off. Barrington Levy did it with pure voice and pure melody.
Swing, I'm broad, I'm broad, I'm
Years later, Here I Come was sampled and referenced in hip-hop and pop productions, a mark of a song that has genuinely entered the cultural bloodstream. When your music ends up in the DNA of other genres, but that is the highest form of impact.
broader than Broadway. Yes, I'm broad, I'm broad.
The fact that it started as a roots reggae record from a Kingston yard in 1985 and ended up reaching those kinds of audiences says everything about how powerful the original was.
I'm broader than Broadway. When you go to Volcano, it's
Here I Come is actually one of the better known songs on this list, so the question is less about being forgotten and more about being undervalued as a ballad.
like a stage show. You have man that swing, DJ, and blow. Pull it down, it
Most people put it in the dance hall box because of Levy's association with that sound. But when you listen carefully, when you really sit with the emotional delivery and the longing in his voice, you hear a ballad. You hear a love song dressed in a dance hall suit. And now number one, the song that started with a digital beat, a man with a big heart, and a story about what one single dance can do to a person who was not expecting it.
All right, C-Trends fam, let's keep it real. We're pouring our hearts into bringing you the best celebrity news and music deep dives. What? Check it. A massive 98% of you aren't subscribed yet. Subscribing is how you can truly support us, helping us grow and create even better content. If you're vibing with what we do, take a sec to hit that subscribe button. It's free and makes a huge difference. Plus, ring that notification bell so you never miss out. Let's flip that 98% and build this C-Trends family together. Your support is everything.
Every story you see here takes hours of digging, piecing together history, and bringing forgotten moments back to life. If you'd like to support that work, you can become a channel member. It's just the cost of a cup of coffee, but it helps us keep these stories alive, and for that, we're grateful. Number one, Beres Hammond. What One Dance Can Do.
No. Listen to me, you just say, hey.
I need you to understand something before I tell you about this song. In 1985, Beres Hammond was not yet the household name that he would become. He was respected in Jamaica.
I'd like to tell you a story about what one dance can do now.
He had been working hard for years, but the international recognition, the status of true legend that had not fully arrived yet.
One dance can do. Listen to me, you just say, hey. After one dance.
And then he walked into a session, stood in front of a microphone, and sang this song. And everything changed.
On the floor, I, she came back.
What One Dance Can Do sounds like the inside of a feeling, like that exact moment when you are dancing with someone and you realize quietly, suddenly, completely that you are in trouble because you are falling.
Wanting for more. No, I don't know.
Beres Hammond, born Hugh Beresford Hammond in Annotto Bay, St. Mary, Jamaica, had been recording since the mid-1970s. And he had a voice that was soaked in American soul and gospel, shaped by Otis Redding, Sam Cooke, and Marvin Gaye, and then wrapped in the rhythms of his Jamaican homeland.
What it is that I've got no. She was
In 1985, he formed his own label, Harmony House Records, and released the album Make a Song. That album contained What One Dance Can Do, produced by Willie Lindo.
it was so nice, yes. But
It became a #1 record in Jamaica and opened the door to the international market for Hammond. The song was built on a digital rhythm, which was the new sound of 1985 Jamaica.
Man, sit so close away. He could
But Beres sang over that digital beat with such warmth and humanity that the technology completely disappeared. You forgot about the machines. You only heard the man.
hear the things I say ignite. Now we want
Multiple independent sources confirm this was one of the biggest Jamaican hits of 1985. On the charts, in the sound systems, on the radio, everywhere.
just from the corner of his eyes. Oh, no. So we'll move.
In many of his biggest songs under real-time pressure, sometimes finishing lyrics in under an hour before walking into the studio. What One Dance Can Do was created with the same instinctive speed that characterized much of his work.
Like this would be so unwise. Ooh, he's
What is remarkable is that you cannot hear the pressure in the performance at all. The song sounds completely relaxed, like he has been singing it his whole life. That ability to take a quickly written song and deliver it like a lifetime message is the mark of a truly great vocalist. It has not been forgotten by the reggae faithful, but outside of the dedicated reggae world, What One Dance Can Do remains far less known than it deserves to be. Now, Beres Hammond's biggest international exposure came in the 1990s with songs like Tempted to Touch. And so casual listeners often start the story there, missing the 1985 chapter that set everything up. The roots of the legend are right here in this song from this year, and they are absolutely worth knowing.